Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osaberg501 and today I want to show you guys a new Amara build that I made to specifically be able to kill bosses as fast as possible. Now I think this is one of the best boss killing builds in the game right now, and one of the big reasons for that is because it's so easy to use. You don't even have to fire any shots with your weapon for majority of the bosses, and as you'll see in the footage, you can actually kill bosses in one single ability usage. So it does an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage. It is also usable for mobbing, but it's not specifically built for that, so it's going to be quite a bit weaker for that. So I want to go into the one item that you actually need for this build. Clearly a lot of other items are going to increase the power a lot, which is actually going to get you to the point that you're able to one-shot some bosses with one ability. But the one item you actually need for the build is the Nimbus Legendary Class mod. Now what this does is whenever you damage something with your action skill, it creates a cloud of your action skill element at the location that deals damage over time, and this is going to facilitate pretty much all of the damage with this build, so you need this class mod. Now we can get into the talent trees, and the first one we're going to start with is the main one, which is Mythical Assault. Now one of the main and most important talents for this build is Violent Tapestry, which when you apply a status effect you gain a stack of rush, and when you use a action skill it consumes all your rush checks and gives you for each stack an increased chance to apply status effects with whatever damage you're dealing. And that is super important because pretty much all the damage of this build is actually a status effect dot, so this is very important for that. Now for do harm, it's basically the same thing, just instead of a status effect chance increase, we're basically getting action skill damage increase. And since we are using a variation of phase cast for this build, this will help us do some extra damage on the initial hit, but this is also just to get down lower in the tree as well. Now we want 5 out of 5 Restless, which gives us action skill cooldown rate. That always helps, especially for mobbing. You're going to need as much cooldown as you can get. And then for killing bosses, it helps, especially if you're killing something like Tyrene or something like that, or a big boss with a bunch of immunities. You're going to want more cooldown to be able to use phase cast whenever you need it. Then we did Ascendant just because this helps it get down lower in the tree, and also if you're mobbing, this is super good because it makes your lure, which is the main one I use for mobbing, it pulls everything in and it makes that radius bigger. Also, you can use Soul Sap if you want, which will heal you a bunch when using your action skill off the damage of it, and it'll increase with Ascendant up to 50% of damage dealt. So with how this build is working, every time you hit anything with your action skill ability, it will full heal you. So that is also helpful if you are dying on any of the bosses you're trying to farm. Next we have Laid Bare. Enemies take increased damage from all sources for a few seconds after being damaged by Amara's action skill, 25% damage increase. Then we have Wrath. Amara gains increased gun damage. This effect is increased after she activates her action skill. And this helps if you're actually, using guns, but I wasn't, I guess, using guns on a lot of the boss kills I showed you guys because I want to show you guys that this build's so strong you don't even have to use guns. But if you're actually farming this yourself and just, farming bosses, playing the game, you're going to be wanting to use guns because it's going to speed up the process quite a bit. And that's just all extra damage past what I'm showing from pretty much all the bosses I kill in the video. Then we have Awakening. Amara's rush stacks gain increased effectiveness plus 30%, so this will increase our do harm and our violent tapestry, which is nice. Then we have Avatar, which how this basically works is it increases our bonus rush stacks plus 10. But basically how this works, when you use your action skill, you can use it again within that first cooldown and just use it a second time, but then you have to wait for a full cooldown after the second time you use it. Then you can use it again and then a second time for that second refresh of the cooldown. And with using phase cast, it does take a few seconds before the ability is technically done. So there's a few seconds before you can use it again. So for our next skill tree, We're going to go into Brawl because there's almost nothing in this. Now, there's two variations of this build. If you're not going against stuff with corrosive or stuff with armor, so if you don't need corrosive, don't go into this tree. And if you're not using corrosive, basically what you can do is put the rest of your points in the Fist of Elements tree, and you basically go down and get sustainment. So if you don't need corrosive as your action skill element, don't go into this tree. If you do, you can put it in anything, either Root to Rise or Clarity is going to be fine. I do Clarity because I like the regen more, and you only need 5, so then you can get the corrosive action skill element. So then on to Fist of Elements. Anima, which increases your status effect damage, the duration. So it just basically increases all of our damage and the duration of our status effects on targets, which is pretty much all of our damage. So it's a pretty big piece of this. Then we have Tempest, which is also pretty big. Increases elemental damage and shock damage to further increase. So if you're using shock, or if you're killing something that you want to use shock against, this is going to be extra as good because you get another additional 32% shock damage on top of the 48%, and this is with 3 extra from my class mod, so get 5 out of 5 into that. Then we have Wildfire, which this one is a bit more for mobbing, but it's also to get us lower in the tree. Now whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, it has a chance to spread to nearby enemies. Now all of our damage is status effect damage, so this has a chance. And as you'll see, like say in this, I have some Slaughter Staff footage saying that I'm doing like 17k per second ticks on a target. That can spread to everything, which is extremely strong because it'll spread the actual damage. Like the status effects it spreads will do the actual damage the first one was doing, so that's really good. Then I went on to 2 in Catharsis, which whenever you trigger an elemental effect on an enemy, when that enemy dies, it explodes, dealing attune damage along with any other element that is currently afflicted upon the target, and has a short cooldown, so it basically just explodes. There's elemental damage, and that's pretty much it. So now, if you weren't going into corrosive, what I would do here is I would probably put 3 into indiscriminate, and then you're down to be able to put your last 2 in sustainment. And if you're using more weapons and you need magazine, you can change Catharsis and put one in a deep well or something like that. I'm gonna be doing another version of this build that focuses more on using grasp and stuff like that, but I think that one is sufficiently different enough to warrant a whole different build because it also was used pretty differently, even though it uses the same class mod. It's kind of the same idea. So that is it for our skill trees, and let's go into the items and into how this build actually works. So now for the items, you actually don't need a lot of stuff, and you're pretty much only going to be using one weapon majority of the time if you have this weapon. So first, how does this build actually do what you see in the footage? So basically what this Nimbus class mod does is the cloud it creates can apply the status effect of whatever action skill element you're using, but whatever weapon you are carrying, if it has an element on it, it will take the elemental damage per second from the weapon, no matter what element, because it just goes off your action skill element, and it'll do that damage with also elemental damage increases like from Tempest, and some weapon damage increases that's extremely hard and almost impossible to really test. But I do know some of the damage increases will increase the damage. I'm pretty sure like specifically Forceful Expression I think should increase it. So some weapon damage stuff will increase it, but as you'll see, you'll basically shoot your action skill at a target, it'll create the cloud around them, and then once it applies your action skill or applies the status effect on the target, it'll just start taking a ridiculous amount of damage. The actual Nimbus cloud damage I think is only doing like 200 damage a second or something, but when the action skill applies, or the status effect applies, it's just doing ridiculous amounts of damage. I think on Trant in this video, which I think is going to be the first thing before I talk about the commentary, I think it was taking for shock damage on his shields, it was taking over 100,000 per second, which is absolutely ridiculous. And you could even get higher than that, a lot higher, if you got like all the best modifiers and stuff. So the Kilo the Wisp, this weapon is pretty much the highest status effect damage on any weapon in the game that I could find. I think this is pretty close to the highest. Now these can come in ×2 pellets. You don't want one of those because it'll lower the status effect damage. If you get weapons that can roll with a single shot or ×2, the ×2 will always have a lower status effect damage. And the chance on this is low, and that's why I'm pretty sure the chance it also goes off by the weapon, if I'm not mistaken. And that's why we have a bunch of stuff like Violent Tapestry and stuff to increase that chance. And it applies your status effect pretty quickly to pretty much everything. Now, if you don't have a Kilo Wisp, it's pretty common, and this is a weapon that's been out since the game has come out. So I had a bunch of these, and I thankfully had this one, which had the Anointed roll. After using Phase Cast, weapon damage decreased by 250% for a short time. Now, this should pretty much work. I'm not exactly certain how this applies, if it fully applies correctly, but it does seem to actually increase the damage. So yeah, if you don't have that, you don't have this roll, that's fine. You're still going to be able to use this build. It's still going to do a ton of damage. But if you don't have a Kilo Wisp, basically any other weapon with really high limits of damage is going to be a good alternative. So say Recursions without ×2, this one's doing 5,800 damage a second. That's good. I have these lumps here, which are around 5,000. I know the boring gun, I think, is around like 6,000 a second. Maybe a bit lower if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly, but Kilo Wisp isn't Kilo the Wisp. It's weird. That's a weird name, but if you don't have one of these, they're a pretty common weapon from my experience, so it shouldn't be too hard to get one. And past that, that's pretty much the only weapon you're going to have out, because that's pretty much all of the damage being dealt is from this action skill element. You can also use this weapon. It does pretty good damage by itself. And for the shield I'm using is a transformer with action skill cooldown rate on action skill end that helps for being able to use your ability more. And also, the transformer heals you for 100% shock damage you take. Now, the Kilo Wisp is shock damage. So you can actually, and you'll see this in the video in the slaughter shaft maybe, but you can actually shoot the ground, and you see it doesn't do damage to me. This actually does hurt you if you didn't have the shield on. And let me put on another shield so I don't actually kill myself. And it will heal you when you shoot at the ground like this. So as you see, that just took all of my shields and a bunch of my health away. Now with the transformer on, this will heal, for me at least, this almost heals my full shield with one shot at the ground. So it's super strong if you need to heal yourself like that. And also with this, with the, where is it at? The Guardian ranks, this skill right here, topped off action skill cooldown rate increases while at full shields. That helps as well if you need your action skill more. So keeping yourself at full shields helps with that. Grenade, anything at all. I do have one that has increased damage of fire rate. I'm not certain if this increased damage from this Terrified Anointed actually increases the damage correctly on this or not. But, you know, it definitely possibly can. I really didn't do it a lot in this video, but you can use that to see if you want to do it. And if you're actually using the weapon, you know, anointed effect like this could help. Now, the artifact, I really didn't do this at all in the video, but you still should be able to apply shock to yourself, or actually, well, with the transformer, I'm saying. But also, if you're using any other action skill element, you can use this, and say if you have a sellout, which I don't have on me on this character, and if you don't know the sellout's the best way to apply corrosive or fire to yourself, and since that's the other two action skill elements we have as Amara, definitely get this artifact with it's the elemental projector. Get one of these and you'll be able to increase your damage by 90%. I don't do it all in this video, which even shows just more damage you can do. And if you have a way, just go get the sellout if you don't have it, or any other way to apply, any action skill, or any elemental effect on yourself to increase your damage. It'll increase your damage by quite a bit. So definitely pick this up. Like I said, I don't use it in the video at all, which just shows how much stronger this build can actually be. And that's the entire build. So subscribe if you want to see more Borderlands 3 content. Leave a like if you liked the video. Also, actually, before I end the video, I think this build also is going to be one of the possibly best boss killing builds for the upcoming Maliwan takedown, or the raid that's coming. I think it's super good at killing bosses, and I think the next build I do that's a variation of this will be easy enough to switch up to be kind of like this, but also be able to kill a lot of mobs very easily. So I think this can be one of the best builds for that, especially with an invincible boss being there, and this thing doing absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage to a single target, especially since Maliwan is pretty much only all armored and shielding for the most part, and we have both those elements, so that will definitely work into Amara's favor. So like I said, subscribe if you want to see more Borderlands 3 content. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions about any place to get these items, how the build works, anything like that. Any questions you may have, leave it in the comments. I'll try to reply to everybody, and thanks for watching.